Welcome, everybody, to episode 18 of Paperboy Ventures. We've got a good one for you today as we're joined by Simon Solis Cohen, the founder and CEO of Huxley Energy Drink. Simon, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Really happy to be here.
Great. So pumped to have you on board and unpack the Huxley story. But before we really go anywhere, would love if you could jump in and just give us the quick elevator pitch. What are you doing at Huxley?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Huxley Superfruit Energy Drink, it's an all-natural, healthier alternative. And our goal is to really redefine the energy drink category. Now, what sets it apart is a few things. First, it's 90 milligrams of plant-based caffeine. And then we have low sugar and no artificial ingredients. So it really delivers a balanced boost of energy, hydration, and focus.
Okay, great. And redefining the energy category, that's a pretty bold claim. It's a massive category. So the take on it's the healthier, better for you version of the players that have dominated this space for years.
Exactly. And, we're not here to put anyone down. We know we stand on the shoulders of all those who came before us in this category and created this category right out of thin air so many years ago. So we're very grateful for that, and what we're here to do is really respond to consumer demand and to consumer trends. And, the data is really clear of, not just the energy drink category, but we all know in so many CPG categories of the rise of better for you products. And so for us, it really came down to how do we make an energy drink that checks so many boxes for people when it comes to things like caffeine content, sugar content, calories, and then most importantly, taste, which I think some people, don't really talk about taste a lot when it comes to the energy category. I think some people really focus more purely on just functional benefits and that's it. But for me, and we'll get into my background, I'm sure in a bit, taste is for me the number one most important thing.
Yeah, taste tends to be the single most important attribute across all food and beverage. You can get people to try something once, but if it doesn't taste good, most likely they're not coming back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to unpacking the whole story, especially with my background. I started in this industry at Red Bull, so I just am looking forward to our conversation today. But before we get into the business itself, I think it's important for people to understand your background and what you were working on that led you to build Huxley, because I know you've been involved in food and beverage businesses for quite some time and fine dining for many years. So yeah, take us back to what you were working on before this whole thing got started.
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of interesting, right? I kind of think of my career in one way, it's the most random squiggly line ever to arrive where I have. But then when you really think about it, actually is a perfectly straight line because I really think everything I've done has just perfectly set me up for what I'm doing now and can bring in experience from so many different, I like to say mini careers I've had. Really started my first love and passion was cooking. I mean, literally as a kid, just, growing up, my grandmother had an amazing garden and we'd, farm organic vegetables before that was the trendy thing to do, And so I was always just growing up with amazing food and dinners. And that just kind of got me hooked from a really young age. I started working in restaurants for fun, honestly, not because I had to go get a job, but just for me, it was fun. Started that when I was a freshman in high school, and all throughout high school, I grew up in Philadelphia, so worked in some great restaurants there. And then from there, I went to culinary school. I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And, just really continued to grow my passion and interest in all aspects of food. And, anything I do, I want to be the best. I'm a very naturally competitive person. And so for me, the goal is, to work at the best restaurants possible. So, I really went the fine dining direction and was very fortunate to have spent time in three Michelin star kitchens over my stint in the culinary world. And I had a blast, but, after a while, I realized it wasn't, the forever path. I'm more of a businessman first before, I think anything else. And, I probably must have written multiple business plans for restaurants, and I just decided there's just no money in it. It's a heck of a lot of work to barely make a profit. If at all. And so I decided it didn't make sense for long term what I wanted to do with my life. And so I ended up, sort of walking away from the culinary world after I, did, I think, pretty well and spent a lot of time, in it. And at the time I was living in Napa Valley and I'd studied, wine in culinary school. They make you take the wines class, which is like the hardest class they have there because there's just so much to learn. And I got bitten by the wine bug. And so I was living in Napa, like, all right, I got to make money. What am I going to do? So I was like, I'm just going to get a job at a winery. And the funny thing is, Kyle, that I couldn't get a job. Nobody would hire me. They look at this resume, and the response I got from people, which is funny now, if people know me, they'd see why this is ridiculous, but they're like, you have no sales experience. You're not going to be able to sell. And I'm like, well,
Hold on. So in coming into this, you had experience at 3 different 3-star Michelin restaurants.
but in the kitchen, and to them that wasn't really valuable or interesting. They wanted people who had front of the house or customer facing experience. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. And so I was just talked my way into a job. Finally, I got one winery to take a chance on me, and they started me part-time. And I worked, if you ever been to a winery and for a tasting, they have the bar, you belly up to the bar, and I was the dude behind the bar pouring the wine flights and tasting it through the 5 different wines, and then trying to sell you bottles and get you to join the wine club and take you on the tour. And it's like this balance between Disneyland in a way for adults and just slight used car salesman vibes I felt sometimes just myself. And I was like, but it was really fun. And I got really good at it really quickly. And within 2 weeks at the winery I was working at, I became the top salesperson on the floor, outselling people who've been doing this their whole career. And it really taught me that sales is just talking. It's just conversations. You don't have to be a complete expert. I, by no means, 2 weeks in, was a wine expert. But it's about connecting with people and being able to explain a product. And I think that's so, to fast forward, serves me well today, because it taught me how to discuss beverages, how to taste beverages. My job was to sit there and teach people how to identify flavors and how to appreciate a beverage. And that just so ingrained in me and definitely helped me when it came to developing my own beverage, years later.
Gotcha. So you get started at the winery in what year? Where are we?
Yeah, so that was 2013. I started working in the wine industry.
Okay, so that took you from the back of the house in the restaurant scene to the front of the house to get you the sales experience and the people, I guess the people engagement side, customer engagement side. How long did you work at the winery before you moved to your next thing?
Yeah, so I spent 5 years between 2 different wineries that I worked at, doing what I did in house, and I always like to say I've never had a job description, and I love that. I'm not someone who fits into a box typically because of just my odd, as I said, squiggly line skill set and career, and so I kind of evolved into a role and ended up really focusing specifically on direct to consumer sales and marketing. And I have a culinary degree, right? That's my chip on the shoulder. I don't have an MBA. I never went to business school, but I'm, very just self-motivated person and just got obsessed with sales and DTC. And, this is at the time when, Facebook was just revving up the ads and digital marketing was just starting to really become, more than just this kind of niche thing. But now every business was engaging in this now and it was critical. And so I really started teaching myself about that. The winery I was working at was doing a website redesign. So I got fully immersed in just all sides of just the digital marketing. And that's sort of what I carved as my niche. And it was great. And it was just amazing experience. I mean, I remember the first time I sent an email campaign out on behalf of the winery and it brought in, I think it was like $60,000 and it just blew my mind. You could send one email and generate $60,000 in revenue. I was just like, I'd never seen something like that coming from a restaurant, and I just got hooked. I mean, it's a bug. It just hooked me.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So you got the bug on the digital marketing side. This is around 2018. So this is when you started to build out your own agency, right?
Correct. Yeah. And so, my wife and I had been living in Napa for 5 years. And, we just got to that point where we decided Napa wasn't where we wanted to spend the rest of our lives. And so we decided we wanted to move and leave. And, we didn't really know where to go. We didn't really have, specific jobs lined up. And long story short, we ended up just going city shopping and we fell in love with Minneapolis. Didn't, literally knew one person. And just visited in the summer. Yes, I visited in the winter. I know. Yes, it snows. Everyone told me that. It's cold. We get it. And so I just, even the cold couldn't keep me away. I came in bitter January and I was like, all right, we just decided my wife and I were just going to show up in Minneapolis. So we moved here in March 2018. We purposely waited till March because we're like, okay, it won't be snowing after March, right? We'll avoid winter. And of course, the next week was like negative 50 degrees once we got here in a blizzard. So, that worked out. And once again, I was faced with couldn't get a job. I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do. I mean, I applied to work at the Apple store just as like a dude helping people. I applied to bag groceries at Whole Foods. They wouldn't hire me. I just couldn't get a job because once again, I just didn't have this typical resume. And so then, friends suggested like, well, why don't you just, try consulting, for the wine industry, have all that experience, you could, see if you could make a buck doing that. So I threw together a quick website on Squarespace, created an LLC, and just, put my shingle out there. And the first year was terrible. I mean, it was just so hard to like build in this network and try to use my contacts. It was very slow, and then all of a sudden I landed that first big client. And then it just took off, and to cut to the chase, it ended up being an amazing 5 years of building this into a full marketing agency. Mind you, I've never worked in a marketing agency. I didn't know how to run a marketing agency, but I figured this out as I went, and had a team of 6, and we got to work with some of the best wineries in Napa and Sonoma. I mean, like, pinch me, I can't believe I get to work with these people, opportunities we were so grateful for. And took all that digital marketing love I had, and did everything from websites to ads to email, social media, things like that. And did that for 5 years. But then after 5 years, once again, you can see maybe a theme. I was like, all right, I'm bored. What's next? And that's when I decided it was time to try something new.
Yeah, you're working in these 5-year chunks projects, and it's funny. It's kind of how I see things as well. The career is just this long journey where you can piece together a ton of experiences, or if you're lucky, you can.
Yeah.
So I certainly appreciate that. But all right, great. So you've got this interesting background of culinary school, of working at the winery, and then building your own wine beverage consulting agency. I'll say, based on that, I would guess your next step would be to launch a wine brand.
Funny you
You
mentioned that.
you went the energy drink route. Talk to me. What brought you to the energy drink segment?
Yeah. I did flirt with the winery part, but the problem is I was about $30 million short of buying a vineyard. So that was a hard pass. So I decided to go into a beverage that probably had a lower barrier to entry, should we say. Yeah, I started with literally a whiteboard. I decided that after running the agency, I was just done being a consultant for other people. It's just sort of the control freak in me. I'm like, I want to run something. I want to have a brand from the bottom up and just do it my way, for better or worse. That's just, how I am. And so I wanted a physical product. I felt like for 5 years I was selling digital products. I wanted something I could literally hold in my hand and consume. So I started a whiteboard of like, what are all these beverages? What are things I can throw in a can, And I went through all of these different ideas and interviewed a few different, R&D companies. And some people like, okay, this idea is ridiculous. It's not possible. The tech would be too hard. It'd cost you $1 billion. And what I kept coming back to was this idea of a better for you energy drink. And I'll say with the caveat that I by no means was an energy drink connoisseur. And that's why I created this, is because I couldn't find an energy drink that I actually wanted to drink. And I had this idea that if I have this problem, there has to be other people with this problem. And I define the problem as a few things. First, caffeine. I'm very caffeine sensitive. The irony of now running an energy drink company is I'm just, a cup of coffee a day kind of guy, and I'm satisfied. That's all I need anymore. I just start feeling weird. I just kind of, my head spins. And so I didn't really feel that there was any energy drinks out there that had lower caffeine that were approachable. And then the other thing is the taste. I felt like with a lot of energy drinks, the kind of consumer perception was it was like taking medicine. You kind of took it because you needed the function, but not because you loved how it tastes always. And then finally, it's just, artificial ingredients, preservatives. I by no means am like completely, obsessed with everything, to the point where I'm like, managing my diet in an unrealistic way. But I try to definitely do my best to lower sugar intakes, have as much natural products as possible. And I just didn't really see something out there that fit that bill. And so I was just like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's just try this. And so the idea really just kind of started bubbling as I get deeper and deeper into the research process. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to just backwards, recreate the existing energy drinks out there. I want to start completely in a different spectrum. And so to me, the first obvious thing was fruit juice. if we're going to have an energy drink and we're going to make it have a fruit flavor, why would you use an artificial flavor? To me, that's just coming from fine dining, whatever, call me snobby, but like, why would I use something artificial? You want to use, I learned in fine dining, the best quality products, and then you're going to have the best quality final end result. So I started with, we should use fruit juice as the base. It should taste more. I wanted it like a light fruity soda than to taste like your typical energy drink. And that was sort of that first building block.
Yeah, sort of like I guess like a Spindrift, how Spindrift approached this seltzer. Is that kind of like the same thought process? I think they use fruit juice
Correct. Yeah,
with their
definitely.
product.
Yep,
Yeah.
very inspired by Spindrift, inspired by obviously like Olipop and Poppy and what they were doing. And the way we really looked at it was, hey, what Olipop and Poppy have now done for, I mean, heck, it's a now new category, right? It's now modern soda. I mean, that's amazing, right? But what they did to, the legacy soda companies, we felt like is a mission that we could take on as well, where you can really carve out this new category within a category.
Yeah, and it's I mean it's interesting. It's as far as categories in the whole CPG landscape, energy drinks is gotta be top 3, 5 in terms of size, players. So, like there's an absolute ton of potential there, but you mentioned the 30 million for the winery. If you keep going, you're gonna need more than that.
I
To
will. I
compete with
will.
the big guys. But yeah, so just stepping back to your concept of when you actually
Mhm.
knew it was something you were going to run with. So when was that, and then how long did it take you to develop the product itself?
Yeah, that's a great question because I can tell you the exact answer because I have the exact email I sent. So November 5th was when I decided, and this is 2023. This is just last year. So November 5th, 2023, I decided, all right, of all these ideas on my whiteboard, the healthy energy drink, that's the one we're going to pursue here. And so I decided, okay, we're going to make this. What do I do? How do we want to like launch this? And then I was just Googling. I was like, you know what? And this shows how much of a novice I am in CPG. I had a friend who taught me about Expo West only a couple months before. I never heard of it, and you're smiling because, like, duh, everyone knows Expo West. I'm not from CPG. I didn't. And so I Google Expo West, know nothing about it, and I see that it's in March. And I said, okay, that's it, guys. That's what we have to do. And so we had about 103 days to get this done. And so literally that night, I went on to the website for Expo West and I bought the booth. I literally bought the booth. I didn't have a product. I had nothing. I'm like, we're gonna make an energy drink and we're gonna, yeah, as you know, it's thousands of dollars. We're gonna show up and like burn the boats. You can't fail. That's not an
Oh, it's not
option.
cheap. Yeah, that's
No.
a heavy investment.
Yeah.
So you launched the product within 100 days of when you knew full steam you were going to move ahead. So that's insane. How did you pull off the development that quickly?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that there's definitely a mixture of just good luck and hard work that go into it. And I'll say luck was on my side, but I'm also a person who I just don't take no for an answer. I think I'm very relentless in that way. And so, I was lucky to get introduced to an amazing beverage formulation team to help take this idea, right? Because I'm taking my wine experience, my chef experience, where, all right, I know these are the ingredients I want. I know what the flavor needs to taste like. I had all that figured out, but I obviously don't have the skill set to figure out the commercialized recipe, right? And figure out all the pasteurization and all that kind of stuff. So I got with this, company, told them my crazy deadline, and I said, look, just tell me no if you can't do it. Like, this is aggressive, but we think we can do it. And it kind of just sounds fun. So F it, let's just do it. So I was like, great, here's a check, go to work, And so they got to work right away on trying to, obviously help us source and figure this all out, how we can manufacture that quickly. And then once we've had the, samples, they presented me, all right, here's your 3 variations of your mango, 3 variations of tangerine, 3 variations of your strawberry skew. And 2 of them they nailed on the first try. It was incredible. I mean, they just nailed it. We said, okay, it's A from this one, B from this one. The mango, we want you to just do this to it, make it taste a little more like that. They went back one more round, boom, nailed it. Right. So that's a lot of, I think, skill and luck in the sense that they had the skill. I had the luck that they were able just to get it done. But I was very clear. I knew what I wanted. The brief was very detailed. This is exactly what it needs to taste like. These are the ingredients, right? We weren't fishing in the dark. And then obviously I had to convince these vendors. I mean, you must know this from your CPG background. Vendors don't just show up the week later with your ingredient, right? If you're putting in these orders, the lead times are forever. So I had to convince these suppliers, I need this stuff now. Like, I'm sorry, I know you'd have an 8 week lead time. You have 3 weeks. Please make me this, And a lot of them were like, you're nuts, but we're going to do it. And that's kind of the theme of the whole process. So, we were able just to get it all produced in time. And then the benefit of owning a marketing agency, was that when I exited that agency and sold it, I negotiated to bring some of my team with me to start Huxley because I knew I couldn't do it alone. So it's very fortunate that we had all the skills in house to do everything else. So we were able to do all the packaging design in house, all the website, all the everything, right? And so really, it was get it made, get the branding, get the cans, boom. It just all came together, just amazingly.
Wow. Okay. So you parallel path the kind of the branding design work, all of the packaging and the imagery that needs to happen there with the beverage formulation
Correct.
through that team, and then you brought it all together and you got it done in time for Expo West.
Literally, and even a week ahead of schedule. I mean, it was amazing. It just lucked out, And then of
Yeah.
course he's got to like ship it to Anaheim. He got to ship the pallet. So
Yeah. That's it's pretty jarring to hear that you decided to do this basically a year ago.
yeah,
And when you think about, well, I've been in CPG pretty much my whole career. It takes brands usually a minimum of a year and a half to launch any sort of innovation, from idea to actually getting it ready for production. So moving quickly, I think it's one of the best advantages you have as a small startup. So it's pretty amazing to see you do that with in March at Expo. So how did it go? I know you picked up a lot of traction since then. What was the show like?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into. I'll be completely honest, right? I'm just like, let's show up, right? So my wife came with me. She has a real full-time job, so she took off work. My mom came because I had no one else I could bring because I just knew like we needed help, and she's in sales. Has a full-time job, took off work, so the three of us just showed up, and it was just drinking out of a fire hose. I mean, I came home so tired and so sick, obviously from just nonstop talking, but it was incredible. And now as I talk to people, they all say, you're nuts. Why would no new brand should go to Expo West? No one who's not at least in multiple lines of distribution set up, and all these you shouldn't. And maybe that's true for some people, but for us it worked out brilliantly. I've already made all my money back from the investment of Expo West just by landing deals at the show. And that's when I realized, like, oh shit, we're onto something. Because I had no idea if this was going to work. But the feedback from people, whether they're former executives from the big strategics or actual buyers from fantastic retailers we all know and love, it was just nothing but praise. I don't think we had one person say something negative about the product, and that's when we're like, okay, we gotta actually get going. We gotta really build this company.
Yeah, and what do you think it was? Was it the taste primarily? Was it the look and feel, like the aesthetic profile of the brand? Was it the ingredient base? What was resonating the most from people you met with?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think the packaging for sure brings people in. Because at the end of the day, right, you walk through Expo Western, it's sensory overload. How do you? I mean, there's no way you can go to every booth, so you have to gotta make a snap judgment just looking at the packaging or what's presented. So I think just because our packaging doesn't look like an energy drink, and obviously that was very much on purpose. People didn't really know what it was, and I think that just brought them over, and then they try it, and then my favorite thing is when you pour it for someone, you say it's an energy drink, and people who don't drink energy drinks kind of just give you this like, oh, okay, fine, like I don't, these usually don't taste good kind of look. But then as soon as they like take a sip or two, you just see their eyes widen, and they're just like, oh shit, that's good. And so I think that's just like packaging pulls people in, and then they're pleasantly impressed by the flavor, and then that keeps them drinking it. And the same goes for consumers today, and I think that holds true.
Yeah, it's certainly what pulled me in. I really, haven't heard of Huxley before a month or two ago when I saw an article, and then I immediately saw the packaging, and it's very different than what you see in the energy category today. It's aesthetically pleasing. I don't know, what would you call it? Is it like a retro style? Like what?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the inspiration, so all of our drinks, they're all named after different national parks across the country. So we kind of really embrace this outdoor adventure persona in the brand. And just the benefits of having run a marketing agency and literally run branding workshops for brands is I've been on the other side. I've been the guy asking the hard questions and forcing brands to make hard decisions. So I held myself to the same standards. Like, what does this brand stand for? What's its personality? I think there's just way too many people who just put a name on a package and say that's it, but there's nothing more to the brand. So we knew we had to build a story. And so for us, the national parks felt like a really interesting story because literally in the word is national parks. You're getting this idea of nature. You're getting this idea of an all natural product. We're showing trees and water. It's very obviously purposeful in that imagery we want. And so, the names are Tangerine Teton, Mango Mesa, Strawberry Sequoia. So we were inspired by the national park posters, those vintage style posters. And so all of the illustrations on the can were done by our designer Hallie, and she's an incredibly talented illustrator, so she hand drew all those illustrations herself. She personally goes to tons of national parks, so she had tons of great inspiration. And we were able to have this kind of very clean aesthetic. There's not a lot on the can, very basic, and for me I think that less is more approach is really important.
Yeah, that's super cool. I was just going to ask you about what your vision is for the sort of the brand personality, because when you think about these big players in the space, obviously you've got Red Bull and all of the stuff that they're involved with culturally, whether it's extreme sports or music or events and things like that. And you've got Celsius, the fitness route. So it sounds like you're going more into the uh, I guess it's like the outdoor recreational type sports, just healthier living. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting thing, and it's something that we talk about internally all the time because it is a tricky balance because we can't pigeonhole ourselves to just be the Patagonia REI of energy drinks, as I like to say, because that is too narrow. And at the end of the day, when we actually look at who's buying this drink, it's way more than just that. We have, our drink is, what's great is it appeals to almost every demographic, right? We have college students who are loving this. We do a lot of programming on college campuses here in Minnesota, and we have tons of baby boomers who love it too, right? And not all these people are your quintessential looking outdoorsy, mountain climbers. So I think that there's that balance you have to strike between having that brand persona, but not letting it be too limiting into who your target customer is at the end of the day, because we do want this to be accessible. The best advice I got from a very successful CPG founder in beverage before I started was you need a product that you can sell at Whole Foods and at Walmart and everywhere in between. And that was really the goal is how can we make something that could eventually be sold everywhere?
Yeah, I think it can definitely play in all of those retail environments, and I know you've got some early traction, and you're learning quite a bit now with your Target partnership. So congrats on that. And another one of my hard hitting questions is how the after you get into Target in your first few months of operating this business.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a goal of ours. So, being in Minneapolis, I like to think maybe there's a little bit of advantage. Who knows? Maybe that's not true. But someone did make a point to me that if you look at all the products in a Target, there's a over index of Minnesota-based companies probably if you look at per capita population. So, we'll take that. Why not? Use everything you can. Yeah, I mean, just really fortunate. Networked in a person to a person to a person who is a fantastic target broker. And she just had a great relationship with the category manager and was able to put it in front of him. And it was pretty much like an instant yes. And so basically, we've been authorized for all Minnesota based Target stores, as our test. And we're going to work our butts off to obviously get the velocities and the data to, hopefully something that can impress them with obviously the goal of expansion from there over time. So, we're literally like it's just launching this week and on store shelves, so it's very exciting. And now he's got to obviously do the hustle and the marketing to get it off the shelf.
Yeah, that's a huge early win. So nicely done there. And I know it's just getting started. It's one thing getting on the shelf; it's another thing pulling through. So a lot of work still to be done there. But want to talk about your retail learning so far. I know it's new this year, but prior to Target. I know you've seen some pretty strong velocities at. Is it mostly grocery? What channels are you playing in? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so our focus is purely, going through retail right now. I mean, yes, we're on Amazon. Yes, we have a website, but admittedly, we put zero effort into that. We just, having come from digital marketing, I know the cost of acquiring customers, and it's just too expensive, in my opinion, for such a young brand. So for me, I actually see better value and bang for my buck on the opportunity cost of my dollar to invest in retail, where it's, I think, able to build faster traction in a more in-person way. And it goes also back to my wine experience. The best way I sold wine was being in front of someone and pouring them a sip. Like, easy. I knew once I could pour them the wine and tell them the story about the wine, I know I could get them to buy it. And I just believe that when you have a physical product like a beverage, yes, Amazon's a great channel. I obviously know there's tons of beverage brands that crush it there. But when you're early, I think right now it's about literally getting liquid to lips, as everyone says in this industry. And so that's why I wanted to go straight to retail. So we work with UNFI for distribution currently. We started by just opening up one DC, the TWC one here that services, the greater Minneapolis, Minnesota area. And so we launched with tons of regional chains. We've been very disciplined in what we're doing. We are very focused. We know exactly what we want to do, how we want to do it, and we say no to a lot. So we only wanted to be in Minnesota this first year to launch. And, it's kind of probably like, well, why'd you go to Expo West then? It's like, well, you start building these relationships. And even going to Expo West, we landed Minnesota accounts, funny enough. Like, we met a lot of co-ops because we have an amazing co-op scene here in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, at Expo West. And so then I was able to come back and then show up at the office and do my pitch, and boom, we're in the co-op. So, the co-ops have been some of the best accounts for us. The velocities are just insane out of the gate, which is fantastic. Obviously, it's the perfect target customer looking for that better for you product. And so that's been, amazing for us. And then we work with other chains like Fresh Time. We're going through their local program right now, once again, just in Minnesota stores. I was just doing a bunch of deliveries for all of them this morning, which was exciting. And then we work with other regional chains here in Minnesota, like Kowalski's, which is a fantastic high-end, more specialty channel. We're about to launch with Lunds and Byerly's as well. And so that's really been our focus for this year. And then next year, we're going to be starting to look to expand. We're going to be launching with KeHE. We're finishing up onboarding right now and start looking at a very regional strategy, but picking off region by region over the next couple of years as we really methodically grow this.
Yeah, it's a smart way to go about it. I think that what I see in the other direction often is brands that will launch on a large geographical scale before they can support all those stores. And you probably know this by now. You need to spend money with these accounts in order to get promotional activity and to drive displays in order to prove out your velocities. So it's that I like the approach that you're taking of being very strict with the geographies.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I agree. I mean, look, I as I said, I was a novice. I knew nothing about any of this going into it. I just surrounded myself with people far smarter than me to, give me ideas and advice, and get a lot of different opinions. And it's my job to sort of suss them out and decide which opinion I take at the end of the day. But I just felt like the smartest people I talked to all said exactly what you just said. Go regional, spend the trade promo. We do tons of demoing. We're doing multiple demos a week. And that's amazing. That's what's gotten us so much success and early velocity off the shelf.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, it's all about just driving, well, first awareness and then trial, and then you will get the repeat customers as long as the product is good, and it sounds like it is and is doing the heavy lifting there. So nicely done. And as you look at next year, I heard you say it's all retail is the focus, right? So do you have your eyes set on like one particular channel? Is it like convenience? Is it mass, or is it really just like on a geography base on where the best opportunity is?
Yeah, it's mostly geography as our first kind of lens, and then from there we'll take a channel lens. So in Minnesota we're going to try a little bit of everything because we view this as a very safe playground where I can still literally put my hands on everything. So here in Minnesota, we just launched with the DSD partner, and so there they're servicing Target for us, but we can start dallying maybe in a little convenience at a very small scale, start dallying maybe with a little bit of food service and other accounts that they have, because they have a great portfolio of accounts. But as I said, we're really just going to only do that here because we want to test things out. We were all about testing and learning because you just don't know until you try. And I want to test at a small scale where it's not going to bankrupt us if we make one wrong decision, which I just have heard horror stories of so many other CPG brands that have done that. But then the rest of the country, we want to take what we know works, which is go hard in natural and specialty. So we're going to be expanding in 2025 our strategies to grow more in the Midwest, obviously, because that's our home base. So obviously looking at, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, areas like that, and we're really more focused more than anything on just a DC by DC strategy. So we've identified the KE DCs, the Unified DCs, made our retailer, list from there, and doing our targeted outreach. And then from non-Midwest, what we're going to be doing is we're just got approval last week, awesome, to open up the Aurora, Colorado DC for UNFI, which is awesome. We're obviously going to hope to open that with KE as well. So we're going to go really hard in Colorado. We feel that brand fit wise, it makes sense from the outdoorsy vibe we have, the very young general population they have. And, an energy drink veteran had told me that it was the highest per capita consumption of any state, Colorado, for energy drinks. So to me, great. That's all the data I need, and they obviously have a lot of fantastic retailers and independent retailers there. And then the other region is going to be Pacific Northwest, same reasons, Oregon and Washington, right? So just focusing on the specific DCs with UNFI and KE there. We once again feel they have an amazing co-op scene. It's probably the most similar to Minneapolis of any other region out there in terms of the quality and concentration of the co-ops. So we know we perform well. We know we have a great data story to bring to those people. So we're just starting that outreach right now. And really excited to see where that goes. And that's it. And that's all we're going to bite on. At UNFI come to me last week and they're like, oh yeah, we approved your Aurora, Denver, DC. Oh, we have enough interest. We can open up Texas for you. And I literally wrote her back. I was like, no, do not open Texas. No, do not want it. Like that's the year after. We're like that freaking focused. And we're saying no, because we don't want to stretch our budgets too thin and ourselves too thin. We want to be able to do that promo support and trade support, like you mentioned.
Yeah, these are big time markets. Texas, California, even biting that off is you would need some serious resources. So definitely appreciate your perspective on that. It's hard to say no, but I think it's the right thing. And just to close out the conversation, really interesting to hear everything that you're working on. Let's talk a little bit about what the future could hold for Huxley and sort of where you want to take this. I know at the beginning of the conversation, we talked about working in sort of 5-year chunks. Is that kind of what you have in mind with this? Is this the next project that you're going to build and see where it goes for the next 5 years? Or are you like, I want to hold this thing for the rest of my life, make it my lifestyle brand? Like what's on your mind with the future?
Yeah, good question. So definitely building to scale and exit. There's no doubt about it. I definitely, really enjoyed, going through that process with my last company and got that bug. And it's that's for me the fun part. I love building companies now. But I know this will take more than 5 years, so I'll probably hold on to this one a little bit longer. Well, let's be honest, it's very hard to build a successful energy drink company in only 5 years. So, my gut says this is a more 7 to 10 year project. Maybe it's more. Who knows, right? It's so hard to predict how the category and how this is going to go. But, I'll definitely, say that we have this, audacious goal of creating the next $1 billion energy drink brand. We don't see any reason why we can't do that. I think the only reason we don't is a failure of execution. We know we have a good product. We're past the product validation point. We know there's loyal consumers. We see the repeat purchases online and in store and anecdotally, right? So we know the product is good. It's just, can we execute, right? And obviously we're gonna have to build a team. Right now there's just 2 of us, right? So we're gonna obviously have to really start hiring and methodically growing this, because we know obviously how much work it's gonna take. But I think if we continue to bring our outsider mindset we've brought, which is why I think we were able to launch in 103 days, is because we don't play by the, oh, this is how it always is. I don't know what's standard. I do it how I think it should be done. And so I think that is actually our secret sauce, is that outsider mindset. So, I think we're just going to go all in and just go as hard as we can, but as methodically as we can. I'm willing to sacrifice quick growth for sustainable and most importantly, profitable growth. I'm obsessed with actually trying to be profitable when I feel like the more people tell me I can't do something, the more I want to do it. Everyone says it's really, really, really hard to have a profitable beverage company. And I'm like, great, watch me, And so that's what we're on the mission to do.
Respect. And I'll say the outsider advantage is real because I'll say, look, I'm an insider. I've worked for Red Bull for years. I've seen beverage up close and personal. I think the last thing I would ever do is start a beverage company. Like it's impossible. So I give you a lot of credit, and it's definitely going to be a tough journey. But if somebody's going to take it on and be successful, I think you've got a good shot. So congrats on all the progress of the brand to date, and we're looking forward to following the journey.
I appreciate it, Noah. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, we'll chat soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.